Hey guys, welcome. It is 5 p.m. on the first day of November 2020. I'm Ben Collins. This is Collective Church. With me, Fred. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
It is going well.
Yeah.
I'm well. I think there's we'd be remiss if we didn't say there's something in the air.
Is it anxiety?
A wee bit of,
Yeah.
I would say maybe some
I
anxiety.
thought we got all of that out of our system the last 3 weeks.
Here with Pete Rollins, anxiety and desire, and alas, here we are before the
What
election.
do you think could be causing it? Any number of things. Really.
Politics, every number of things.
Yeah.
Every number of things. We are really, really glad that you all are with us tonight. We're glad to be together. Grateful for Pete Rollins being with us the last few weeks. Let's check in. We got Dan Hensley here and a handful of you online. We're thrilled that you're here. We've got a liturgy for you tonight. We're going to get into some music to start, and we are. I guess we'll just let this one speak for itself, right?
Yeah.
Into the moment. Let's do it. Hey, Jay.
Politics are love. Make you blind or make you see. Make you a slave or make you free. Only one does it all. Just giving up your life for the ones you hate the most. Just giving them your gown. They've taken your clothes. It's learning to admit you've had a hand setting them up, knocking them down, because love is not against the law. Love is not against the law. No, love, love, love. Are we defending life? Are we just pick and choose? Life's acceptable to lose. Which ones to defend? 'Cause you cannot choose your friends. You can choose your enemies. What if they were one in the same? Would you find a way? Love and hope, give them your name, because love is not against the law. Love is not against the law. No, love, love, love. Love is not against the law. No. Love is not against the law. No. Love, love, love. Love is not against the law.
Welcome. If you're just joining us, hey David, hey Rachel and Don, hey Jay, hey Melanie and Caroline and Scott and Annabelle and Ethan. Hey Jim, hey Lynn, hey Cindy, I should have said, hey Sue, hey Jay, hey Dan. Glad you guys are with us. We're doing our work. This is our Sunday liturgy, the work of the people. We are the people. Thanks for being here with us. If you want to sign up for the weekly, you can get connected at wearecollectivechurch.com. You can feel free to chat on Facebook. Hey, Dottie, how's it going? Thanks for saying hey. You can definitely chat on Facebook. That's where a lot of you are interacting, so feel free to do that. We did find out if you want a higher quality experience sooner, hotter off the press, you can get it 10 seconds earlier on YouTube. Do you want to know the best part? It's free. All you have to do is subscribe. Go to youtube.com/wearecollectivechurch right now. You can subscribe for free. Everything happening right now, you could have been having this experience 10 seconds earlier.
Yeah.
So, and higher quality, right? It's in what, 1080?
Yep, and chat.
It's
And
just,
if you're going over to YouTube right now, and I suggest that you do, I would also recommend you subscribe to Three Button Media's YouTube page, because
I think we should.
Of the gorgeous meditation videos that you've been seeing these last couple months
That's right.
are all up there, or some of them, and you'll be seeing a lot of great content on that page. So go subscribe now,
yeah.
or later,
Uh-huh.
preferably now.
Yeah, sure. As soon as you can. Appreciate you guys very much. Hey, Bill. Hey, Joy. How you doing? So that's what's coming. You should be on YouTube, and we're going to get a more robust chat started in the YouTube platform eventually. We know that trying to do both of those at the same time is not something that Fred and Brandon and I can do right now, but we're headed in that direction, and you guys are going to be the ones we call on to help. So please stay tuned for that. What's going on this week? Glad you asked. Monday, as usual, we're going to have yoga at 6 p.m. with Sarah, and that's going to start at the Road Ohm Facebook page, and then hopefully that'll get shared through our page as well. And that's we're going to maybe be shifting things with yoga, so stay tuned there. But one of the things we've realized is that in order for Sarah to do that live, things just got a little harder because she was doing it outside at her house many times, and with the time change, there's not enough light for her to teach you a yoga flow in her backyard. So we may be moving her shoot location, we may be moving the time. We'll let you know. For now, tomorrow it will be pre-recorded, but there will be Monday yoga, 6 p.m. With our favorite yogi, Sarah. And then, of course, Thursday, 5:30 p.m., as always, Dan Hensley, would you please share what's coming with Collective Cares this week? Hey, Kenny, great to see you. Thanks for jumping in and saying hey. Dan Hensley, would you share what's going on with Collective Cares on Thursday this week? There will be Collective Cares, and there will be Zoom, and possibly, I know that they've been talking about doing some in-person gatherings as well, and Dan's had some folks able to safely join him on his porch, which is awesome. So that's what's coming this week, at which point you might be wondering, wait a minute, you didn't say occupy. And you're right. And you know, if I were really like trying to really sell it, I would probably say something like dramatic, like I'm never gonna say occupy again. But let's be honest, even in a rebrand, I'll probably say occupy millions more times just because it's so ingrained. But this is the week, friends. We're transitioning the branding of Occupy Trilogy, which has been with us for 7 years, since really the very beginning of Collective. And if you've heard it, but you never really, we're just gonna hang for a second and wait for these engines to come by. This is cutting edge. This is how you know it's live. We can't edit around this. Cool, okay. Where were we? Yeah, Occupy. So Occupy's been with us for about 7 years. This has been a weekly group that basically meets and crowdsources sermon content for the coming week. So we'll bring a text or a topic or a theme or a question and engage that. And the idea is that by asking the people who choose to come on any given Tuesday, it allows my preaching in particular to be more the voice of the community than just my voice and my perspective. And it also helps shape the entire liturgy, all of the work that we do on a Sunday night. So with that in mind, The new title, this is what you're going to have to look for on Facebook, I believe. We're also rolling into a brand new season of Facebook and Zoom management, so stay tuned. But what we're going to roll out this week on Tuesday at 4 p.m., so it's going to be the same time, same as usual, but instead of Occupy Trilogy, henceforth until we change it again, it will be called Work of the People. Which you may think, that sounds familiar. That's the definition of liturgy, is work of the people. There's a twist, because it's collective, of course, right? We're going to be spelling work of the people, W-E-R-K. And if you're a millennial or someone familiar with that culture, and your instinct when I said we're going to spell it W-E-R-K was to say work, then you probably get what we're going for. According to Urban Dictionary, work, W-E-R-K, is an expression of congratulations, an exclamation of the people about doing something exceedingly excellent in attitude, vitality, or vigor. It's congratulatory. It's a declaration of support, praise, or approval. It's about an outstanding achievement, really in any area of life. One of the things that drew me is the idea that work is related to the fields of art, fashion, music, friendship, and so there's this sort of exclamatory enthusiasm with the word work. I like that. I like that it makes sense, maybe culturally, but there's a few things that make it more important to me in terms of why we chose this word, effectively this title, more than just that it's cultural, it's timely. I like that it puts the word we in the way that we spell work. So that our understanding, especially because this is about how we source our liturgy and how we create our liturgy in our community, I love that we communicate that whatever work is being done, that it's always being done in a group, that it's never individuals, but it's the way that we do work. And finally, I think this is my favorite definition from the Urban Dictionary understanding, is that the reason we spell the word work with an E is that the final call is to execute. The final call is to execute. The E, we might say, in work is about executing. And I think this is important, especially for those of us who so enjoy the intellectual reflection on Tuesday. And I can picture Dottie, the conversations we've had where she goes, just melting our brains. And I feel that way very often with the number of intellectuals who come to the group. And we have to remind ourselves each week that when we're done ruminating and reflecting, that final call to execute is an invitation to find a tangible practice into which we invite all of you, into which we invite the rest of the congregation. So it can't just be these ideas in our heads, but it's got to be work. It's got to be execution. And it's got to be us that do it. So, work of the people. W-E-R-K. It'll be up on Facebook by probably tomorrow, I hope. Hold me to that, right? Make sure. It'll be up tomorrow. It'll be probably the same group of people. We'll meet on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. If you didn't know about it or if you're more intrigued now because it's got a snazzy new title, feel free to come by. I have a feeling... What else is going on Tuesday?
I don't think much of anything.
Okay, so you probably are not tied up Tuesday afternoon. If you want to come and talk about anything that may not be going on in the world related to what we do as a congregation, please join us. That'd be great. You can find us on Facebook there. So thank you guys again. Thanks for being here with us live. Thanks for catching up after the fact, if you're watching, if you're listening. Even if you're catching up on Facebook instead of YouTube, your presence makes us who we are. Thanks. Welcome. Fred, would you give us the community statement?
I would. We value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and backgrounds representing an intergenerational community, and we've traveled different paths. So we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. So we strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Awesome. Thanks, Fred. We are going to shake it out, cleanse our spiritual palates. We're going to do some breathing, and breathing for us very often is an invitation to make a choice. It's an invitation to control what we can, which is what we do with our bodies, so that we can open ourselves to things that we cannot control, which a lot of times is what is going on in our inner life, our emotions, our anxiety about what's going on in the world. And so some of what we do is we start with our bodies because we can control those things, and we posture ourselves in openness. And we listen, and we get silent, and we let our breath slow, and we let our heart rates slow. And for some of us, there's sensations of light. For some of us, there's sensations of sound. Some of us pray. And that might mean speaking to God, speaking to a higher power or the universe. Some of us pray, and for them that means listening. That means tuning their ears to things that we can't hear, but that we do feel and that change us. And tonight our meditation, as we breathe, our meditation is going to be an invitation to reflect, and I want to call us to do this through our breath and through the drone footage. Reflecting on the fact that change is constant, and that can if you zoom in, that can be really threatening, because that means that we'll never stop changing, and change is really hard, and change is emotionally difficult, and it causes grief. So maybe that's troubling. But if you zoom out, there's actually peace. If you zoom far enough out, the fact that change is constant actually at some level begins to look like stability. That there are things that are always changing, but because they're always changing and the changing is a predictable pattern, you begin to find peace. In some of what Pete was talking about, the knowing unknowing. For me this week, as we get ready for the election, some of that peace has come from the realization that regardless of who wins, how will the rotation of the earth respond to the outcome of the election? How will the cells in our bodies that die off and self-regenerate, how will they feel about the outcome of the election? The tides this week, will they fall and will they rise, or will they change their minds because of the election? Will the sun rise? Will the sun set? My point is this. The change is constant thing. It's threatening, or it can feel threatening if you're in a position where things are well, because that means that the things that are well you might lose. And the truth is, if you wait any length of time, you will. Things come and they go. But for so many people who are anxious, who are hurting, who are scared, the big picture is a reminder that whatever is coming, whatever happens Tuesday, is also not the final thing. Whatever happens that day, the sun will set that day as well. And if that day is another 4 years, then the sun will set on those 4 years. There's an invitation to peace in our breath, in the coming and going, in the fact that breath is not all in the fact that breath is not something we're ever meant to apprehend. It's not meant to live here. It's meant to be a cycle. It comes and it goes. The sun rises and the sun sets. If you would join me, let's breathe deeply for maybe 3 cleansing breaths, and then we'll begin and we'll sit silently for about 3 minutes. Feel free to enjoy. The drone meditation is spectacular, but feel free to watch. You can close your eyes. You can use sound or not. However it is that you enter in to that space of openness. Let's do that together now for about 3 minutes. All right. I hope that you can find some peace in that as well. That whatever happens, whatever the outcome, the sun will set for you. If things are well, enjoy it. That's the moment. That moment's what there is, not the promise that it'll always be good, that it'll always be joy. The sun will set on that and in our suffering. In our suffering, the sun will set on that, on this anxiety, on all the open-ended questions that we don't have answers to, fears, in some cases for the people we love, in many cases of the people we love. Of the conversations that we've had leading up to Tuesday and the conversations that we fear we'll have to have with family in the aftermath of Tuesday. The sun will set on all of that, which is not to say, just hang on and get by. Eventually it'll get better, and it'll change. One way or another it'll change, but can we find ways to still be present, to still find peace in these moments, in the midst of all this? That's been a lot of what we've been wrestling with in the last 3 weeks. That's a lot of where we've intentionally gone with Pete, looking at ourselves, looking at the anxiety that's created by our desire. I mean, could there be a better title for how we're feeling? I mean, really, so the last 3 weeks have been titled Anxiety and Desire, and I almost just called this Anxiety and Desire Part 4. I mean, this is where we find ourselves. We're racked with anxiety by all of these unanswerable questions, by the unknowns of what's coming on Tuesday and after Tuesday, and the reason that we have this anxiety is because we have such desire. We have a desire for the world to be better. We have a desire for there to be affordable housing for the people that don't have it. We have a desire for freedom, not only freedom to get and to consume, but freedom from all of these cultural forces that tell us that the keys to our happiness are all in our consuming, in our acquiring, and in our power. Pete did a great job of inviting us into a conversation that calls us to at least consider that there are some different ways for living this life, for seeing what's going on in the world, and really for seeing ourselves, for looking at what's happening in us. So Jay asked this phenomenal question to wrap up the Zoom last week, sort of end the Zoom after the final week of the series, and I thought it so perfectly captured for me why I'm still so connected to Pete's work, why Pete has become such a good friend of mine, why his work is still so formative in my life. But it's really rare that I think you get such a clear and concise answer, and it was just magic, and I wanted to share it with you, and I think it perfectly sets the table for us to reflect a little bit on how we get ready for Tuesday and who we are after. So check out this quick video of Jay and Pete and us in the Zoom last week, and then we'll chat a little bit more and head over to a Zoom ourselves. Check this out. All right, go ahead, Jay.
Okay, Pete, you've obviously thought really, really deeply about a lot of this stuff. Mine is a sort of a semi-personal fantasy question. You often refer to your work, and it's clear that you're doing a huge amount of work. And I think that the kind of guy you seem like is more involved with process rather than outcome. However, if you could imagine the best possible outcome as a result of the work that you have done and are continuing to do, what would that outcome look like? What would be different in the world and people, etc.?
Great question, Jay. Ooh, I'm not paying you enough, Pete. Sorry.
That not trying to be nosy, but just trying to understand I'm very impressed with your knowledge and very impressed with who you are as a person, the way you've handled some of the things that people have said, extremely helpful, down to earth. But I'm interested in possible outcomes that you might fantasize about or hope for.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. So to use an analogy to psychoanalysis again for a second and go that, in psychoanalysis, a person at the end of analysis, the therapist themselves may have personal views, for example, on whether it's better to be married or better to be single or better to be this, whatever, right? But they obviously, I hope, keep that to themselves, right? Is that the idea is that in analysis you come to be able to embrace, obviously the contradiction of life, and you've gone through the process of speaking the trauma into being, et cetera, and then you go into the world, and then how that will look different for different people. The only good thing is you kind of know none of it works, but also that's what's fun. The fact it doesn't work is it's fun. So I say that to set this up is I want to help churches be a type of space in which, I'll say in two ways, in which we are, I'll say, libidinally disinvested from a frenetic pursuit of wholeness. So that's the first thing. Which means that I think there's a logic of desire that we're caught in, which is always expansive, what Hegel calls a bad infinity, wanting more money, more fame, more this, more that. This causes deep anxiety and deep suffering, and also so many problems in the world: jealousies, envies, production to the point where it's dangerous and damaging. All of these human evils come out of this frenetic pursuit of trying to fill an original lack. And when I think in the other session, I talked about forgiveness of debt as not a payment of debt where you fill a lack, but a forgiveness, which is you render the nothing.
I remember that.
So the first thing is communities where literally you liturgically enact a space in which basically, the good news of Christianity is you can't be whole and complete, and life's a bit crap and you don't have the answers, right? Now, not many people are going to come to the front of church for that, right? Because they come to the church and the good news is you can be whole and complete and have the answer. Come to the front, right? But my good news, just as I am, is playing in the back, and I'm saying life is shit and I don't have the answers. Come to the front. Come to the front to embrace it. But the dialectic move, of course, is as we are able to embrace the suffering and difficulty, actually we find the joy. So that for me is a deeply theological endeavor, but it's also a deeply political endeavor. The reason why I work with churches is partly because there's a few different reasons. Sorry, you got me off because you asked such a good question. I'm sorry. One is, right, it's so difficult to libidinally disinvest. We're all in the matrix, like the batteries plugged into the system, right? Whether we love it or hate it, we're giving energy to it. We're energy to the system. It's so hard for us to embrace a type of enjoyable unenjoyment, struggle, embracing the struggle of life, not frenetically pursuing wholeness and completeness. Is so difficult that actually we need community to do it. We need community, we need rituals, we need art, we need music, we need sermons. So we need to enact a space in which in our lives, I call it a desert in the oasis, this quiet space in the craziness of life where we're able to escape the tyranny of happiness, right? Where we're able to be free, to be unhappy, to be, right? It's so difficult that I imagine, what would we need to do it? And so here's my thinking, right? First of all, we probably need people to do something weekly. Second of all, we want them to do it for years, maybe all of their life. Thirdly, we want them to bring their kids maybe to this, and we want it to involve arts and speaking and community and all of these things. And we want actually thousands of these communities all over the world, actually tens of thousands, in fact, millions. Like, okay, so how do we do that? Well, there's already a network that exists. So all we have to do is inject this reform, this different type of thinking, and you've already got the entire network set up. Otherwise, I'm just helping 1 or 2 people or 10 people or 100 people. No, there's a whole network. And here's the trick. I think this message is actually true to the heart of this message. So it's actually easy enough for us to perform a reformation. And a reformation is basically a radical reinterpretation of every coordinate, where everything stays the same and yet everything's different. And so that's my vision, is communities that are countercultural collectives in which we are libidinally disinvested from a frenetic pursuit of wholeness through an encounter with Christ crucified. My God, why have you forsaken me? The self-divided God, which then enables us to sensitize ourselves to the other and to find meaning in our engagement with the earth. But as to what exactly it's going to look like in the aftermath of that, it's anyone's guess.
I think the initial advice was you should probably have a backup plan when you started trying to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Don't plan on always being able to get paid to do this, which is good advice.
That sounds a lot like what collective is all about. And see, I've never been involved with a church. I'm 77 and I've never been involved with anything related to church until I was like 75 and a half. And so I understand what you're saying about the network, and that's part of I have problems with religion and organized religion and what they do and don't do. But it seems like what collective is trying to do, in my opinion, is to use the network that you're talking about in order to create a different message. I love the phrase to be libidinally disinvested, and I know exactly the frenetic pursuit of one thing or another, and I know exactly what you mean by that. And so now I know I have a sense of more of what you're all about, and I appreciate your answer very much.
No, thank you.
I know. I know what you're thinking. I said that was going to be a summary of the series, and it was Pete talking for 8 minutes again. And you may be feeling like he lost me at libidinally disinvested from a frenetic pursuit of wholeness. I'm going to ask you again to hang with me. So what we've just heard is Pete's 8-minute-ish summary of not only the 3-week series, Anxiety and Desire, but his 8-minute summary of sort of the arc of his work, what it is that he's trying to do. So you've got sort of, imagine Russian nesting dolls. We've got sort of summaries inside summaries. I'm going to give you now my summary of his notes with some reflections on the state of things, we'll call it. Mm-hmm. And then I have just a quick little sermon. So I'm just going to, these are literally bullet points that I picked up in watching that video again. So the idea in analysis that you come to embrace the contradictions of life. And this got me thinking 2 things about living with contradictions. In the sort of orthodox telling of the Jesus story, he is both human and divine. And I think for a long time, people have wrestled with like, how do you get that much Kool-Aid in a pitcher? You know, like this is 200%. How do you get 200% in a 100% body? And I think, or they go, you know, is it partially diminished? Is it 50% human, 50% divine? But no, fully human, fully divine. And I came to understand incarnation, though, and we'll get into this more in Advent, maybe not as like a surplus, but almost as an inner antagonism. How is the existence of simultaneously being fully human and fully divine actually an existence of suffering, of living with the contradictions of that inner antagonism? And the reason I got there is because we as a nation, regardless of what happens on Tuesday, we as a nation are red. We as a nation, we are Republican. And we as a nation are blue. We also as a nation, we are Democrat. Right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever you feel about the two-party system, however you feel about the Constitution, how we got where we are, I know enough to know I don't have any idea. I know I don't know enough. I know I need to be more educated. I know that we're red and we're blue. And to Pete's point, we know none of it works. We're red and we're blue. We know none of it works. And I think in some sense, that's democracy, is maybe the name of the inner antagonism, is that we're working it out with fear and trembling. We're fighting our way through it. And it's ugly at times, and we're in one of those periods. And the call in our communities and in our lives, and again, for us, part of our Christian faith is that we've moved away from the idea that there's a big other who is sort of religiously or spiritually mandating that we do any of this, and instead we choose lives of faith. We choose lives of spirituality. We choose to live as if these values are true because we're longing for a good life, right? Not the illusion of wholeness, not the fantasy of wholeness that we know that we can't reach, but a life that can come to terms with it not working out, with things not going the way that we need them to. And Pete calls this libidinally disinvesting from a frenetic pursuit of wholeness. The first time I ever heard him speak in person here, he said, freedom from the pursuit of happiness is the way that he phrased it. And this frenetic pursuit of wholeness, this is the source of our suffering, right? And that's not a Christian idea. This is just as Buddhist as it is Christian, the idea that any desire for things to be other than as they are causes us to suffer. Any desire for things to be other than as they are causes us to suffer. Partially, this is a gift, right? Because this suffering is a symptom that calls us to work for justice. Because we look at people who don't have places to live, and that, being the way it is, causes us to suffer. Their suffering makes us suffer. And so we're moved to change things. But that's it, that frenetic pursuit to fill that original lack. Pete goes on to talk about needing a liturgical space where we can enact this, right? That we can't be whole, that life is shit, that there are no answers. And I love his joke about the altar call, but that's it, right? We're not hawking certainty and satisfaction, right? There's no snake oil left, right? The magic wands are all broken. That's the good news. It's just honesty, maybe, in a human community that we cannot be whole, that life is a bit shit, and that we don't have the answers. But guys, the problem is some of the work that we're called into, back to the work of the people, is that we're inviting this community to make that liturgy and to make that appealing every week so that other people want to be a part of that kind of liturgy. Theologically, but this is also a deeply political endeavor. And I think maybe the line that was most powerful for me is that enjoying life in the midst of suffering requires community. Enjoying life in the midst of suffering requires community. Space to escape the tyranny of our happiness. And I love how specific Pete was. Weekly gatherings for years at a time. Bring some kids to it. Involve the arts, spoken word, music, community, and the desire for more of these communities. And I mean, this is as evangelical as I've ever heard Pete sound, right? He's talking about churches starting other churches. He's talking about these little collectives, these little communities, these little groups, subversive kind of insurrectionist groups that are, he says we should use the existing network. I think the easiest way that I can put it, guys, he's talking about hijacking the church using their guy. Like, we can use Jesus to make the church help the common good. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible again. There have been times in history when it happened, when institutions served the common good. It's possible again. And we are about that work. In fact, I love that he says performing this reformation is not a turning point in an otherwise straight history called Christianity. Instead, and we did a series on this a couple years ago called Reform, it's not, Reformation is not a turning point in an otherwise straight line of Christian history. Reformation is Christianity, right? Where did we start in the meditation? It is always changing. It's always turning itself over. The cells are always dying and self-replacing. The sun is always setting and rising. Is any of this familiar, right? That we, Pete's saying we could take these ideas. We could traffic in ideas and practices. That we could begin to, in a sense, this should be familiar to you guys, like maybe some yeast in a little bit of dough. We could start to work these ideas into an existing system, like churches. Like even left field, the United Methodist Church. We could start working these ideas in. And yes, this is live streamed. Anybody that can see this one. So here's our strategy. Like some yeast in a bit of dough, like a seed in the garden, like some weeds that grow up right in the midst of the wheat. Like just some bread, just a little bit of bread. Something as simple as a cup. Just some people sharing a meal. Or is it the body of Christ? The invitation to participate in a school of love, as much as we want that to be a call to figure out whether red or blue is right, and for the school of love to co-opt that color and then get everyone to be that color, and then we'll say that's the school of love. Instead, the invitation of the school of love is to be people who learn to love in the midst of a purple world. We are a world at enmity with itself. We're living in the midst of more inner contradiction, both as individuals, psychologically and emotionally, as communities, as a nation. We're living with these contradictions. And I guess the easiest way I could put it is the usual stuff isn't working. The rush to the extremes isn't working. People saying what we need is a clearer sense for which is right, red or blue, and rushing to those poles isn't working. Learning to love, and I'm just going to be honest about this, learning to suffer for love is a realistic approach to living in a purple world. That there's going to probably be self-sacrifice and discomfort. That we're going to have to say we don't know a lot. That we're going to have to say we're wrong a lot. That we're going to have to say, will you please forgive me, a lot. That we're going to have to say, I will forgive you, even though I'm so mad and disappointed, I will forgive you. It's a purple world, and that's what we're going to address for the next few weeks, because we don't know what's coming Tuesday. We don't know what's coming after that. So we're going to talk about life in purple. And that may be that we have election results on Tuesday, in which case it'll still be a purple world, right? A clear election victory won't change the fact that we have all the same work to do with racism. We have all the same work to do with affordable housing. We've got all the same work to do with healthcare. We have all, right, education. We've still got all the work to do, guys. And sure, in some sense, depending on what happens Tuesday, depending on your particular perspective, maybe there's a sigh of relief Tuesday, right? Maybe there's even more worry and anxiety, and we still got the same fucking work to do, guys. Like we got to get up on Wednesday, and we still got to do the work. Maybe it'll be easier, maybe it'll be harder. It's the work. It's still the work we've got to do. Okay, so here's the sermon. This is the United Methodist baptismal vows. It's a part of it. So if you've ever been baptized at Collective, or if you're baptized in the United Methodist Church, or baptized in a tradition that uses this kind of a vow, this is what we say. We say that we'll resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present themselves. Will resist evil, oppression, and injustice in whatever forms they present themselves. I think that the Christian call to humility, I think that Jesus' invitation to see reality, to see things as they are, I think the call to be disillusioned of the illusions that don't serve us anymore, that harm us, that hurt people around us, I think we have to acknowledge that evil and injustice and oppression, regardless of what happens Tuesday, they will present themselves in the political life of our country. If a Republican wins, if a Democrat wins, evil, injustice, and oppression will present themselves in the governance of our society, in the behaviors of our culture, in the attitudes of our hearts, in our postures towards our neighbors, the ones who live in this country and the ones outside. My point is the vow, and this is what, in a sense, what Collective has agreed to also, because Collective, whenever we baptize someone, Collective reaffirms their faith. The congregation reaffirms their vow to resist evil, oppression, and injustice in whatever forms they present themselves. And so part of what I'm saying is, regardless of what happens Tuesday, the call to do the work is the call to do the work. We're called to resist evil, oppression, and injustice in whatever forms they present themselves. And unfortunately, we live in a world where it's not black and white. They don't present themselves in a singular boogeyman. And I know this election makes it feel that way. It's just not true, right? Even if your guy wins, there's probably still going to be 16,000 people without affordable housing. The vow is a deeper allegiance. We're on a 4-year cycle. The sun rises, the sun sets, and maybe we could simply end here as we get ready to reflect with some more music. The sun rises and the sun sets. The words of the mystic for us, and I'll invite you to remember these, they're easy enough, but I'll invite you, whether or not you're a prayer person or a mantra person or a spiritual practice person, feel free. These words are also yours to take, no charge. They're not mine. And I'm not saying that you have to believe it, and maybe for you even saying it, you've got to laugh, or maybe you're cynical, you say bullshit. But maybe here is the core of some of where our faith is at least inviting us to point our hope. All will be well. All will be well. And all manner of things will be well. Let's do it.
Be the light in a cry. Be the one that's been there on a camel's back, slow to anger, quick to laugh. Be more heart and less attack. Be the wheels, not the track. Be the wonder that's coming back. Leave the past right where it's at. Be more heart and less attack. The more you take, the less you have. 'Cause it's you in the mirror staring back. Quick to let go, slow to react. Be more heart and less attack. Ever growing steadfast. And if
You can sign up for the weekly. You can give to Collective at wearecollectivechurch.com. Speaking of which, if you've been pouring cash into one campaign or the other for the last number of months and you wonder what you're going to do with that cash after Tuesday, if you would just bookmark collectivegives.com for you and then go ahead and put an event in your phone for Wednesday morning. It says Give to Collective. You can put Collective Gives in that event. But yeah, if you want to funnel some of that money that's been going into this campaign into some ongoing common good, we'd love to put that to work. So you can do that at wearecollectivechurch.com or collectivegives.com. There's some exciting stuff coming in the month of December. The building's going to be reopened in some form or fashion. There's going to be some opportunities to do things safely and in person in very small doses. But all that stuff takes money. So if you want to be a part of that, we'd love for you to be. You can support things that matter, and this matters. So collectivegives.com. If you want to get to know us a bit better, join us on Zoom right now following the service. We're going to chat for a little bit. You can get to know us. Or if you want more info on weekly community groups, you can check out Facebook. You can email info@wearecollectivechurch.com. That will get to me eventually. Thanks for being with us online. Your presence does make us who we are. Let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention. First to our forehead for clarity of thought, to our lips for clarity of speech, and to our hearts for clarity of action. So that in all that we say and do, love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. We will see you on Zoom in just a moment.